I'm here to really kick off a vlog series, which I've entitled Stories from the Tour. I launched this book back in June of this year, and it has been quite the journey thus far in telling this story at the intersection of race, money, and capitalism. And so this is really an opportunity to share some of my reflections, share key themes about the book and how they relate to everyday life. And I thought it best to start with some of the why I did this and why my journey has led me to write a book like this. I think so much of this work for me began in graduate school, where I did my double doctorate in anthropology and African American studies. And people will ask me, well, why did you do that? And I could have gotten a PhD in a business school or really done anything else. But I think for me, it was so important to be rooted in Black consciousness, be rooted in the Black lived experience, and having a thorough understanding of that, to then use anthropology really as a discipline and a method in order to enliven stories and speak to real experiences of everyday people at the intersection of race, money, culture, etc. And so for me, it was always about telling stories that center Black life, that center Black prosperity, while reckoning with the contradictions, the tensions, and all of the problematics inherent in a story about capitalism. I think as I've been on this journey, I've realized just how polarizing this work has been. And I have been critiqued, I've been insulted, some of the worst things you can imagine. And, that can have its effect for sure. But I think what's most important is the realization that we carry a lot of economic trauma. We carry and have very visceral reactions to conversations about how we can engage in the economic system differently, or think of it differently, or have a strategy that might be different than how we might have imagined it before. And so much of the criticism that this work receives is really anchored on the belief that capitalism is inherently evil, is inherently racist. And I totally give credence to that critique, because when you look at the creation of Western capitalism and how Black people were the labor force, but never really afforded the opportunity to be the beneficiaries of the economic system, the critiques make sense. And again, especially rooted in the discourse and the scholarship of racial capitalism, that is the central argument. But what I'm offering is that while we can be rooted in that understanding, that's not to say that we don't challenge it. It's not to say that we shouldn't point to evidence of how people, everyday people, use the tools of capitalism in order to create greater agency, a greater set of choices and opportunities for themselves in service of their financial security and service of their thriving. We have to be able to sit in the tensions and the contradictions of that and make sense of it. And so that's what really this work is about. And I think that, like anything that is a new offering or a new way to think about something, it can be challenging and it can be polarizing. And so that has certainly been my experience thus far. But again, it's really been an invitation to invite people to think about, okay, we can acknowledge that capitalism is this really problematic system, but we can also acknowledge that other isms, whatever it is, are also capable of harm. No system is perfect. And so the question, the interesting one and the productive one, is how do you engage in it in a way that is different and creates new outcomes within it, recognizing that the system isn't going anywhere today, and it's probably not going anywhere tomorrow. And so that's been the offering. And so again, this is really just an opportunity to share themes, ideas, topics, and generate a conversation amongst all of us about how we can make sense of the world that we live in, the economy that we have in such polarizing times, politically, economically, and socially as well. So with that, again, I'm Dr. Rachel Laurier, author of Black Capitalist, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. Let me know topics and themes that are of interest to you, questions that you have, and we can figure it out together.